Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is still consolidating in the sideways price range as more liquidity is building just below the price of Bitcoin and just above the price of Bitcoin, which we need to pay attention to, while Ethereum is still playing out the short-term warning signal alongside Solana playing out the same short-term warning signal, while the price of XRP just significantly broke below a key level on the price chart. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, starting off on the weekly Bitcoin price chart, and the super trend indicator is still sitting in the green, indicating a larger bull market. And of course, on this weekly Bitcoin price chart, we still have a possible bearish divergence forming, but not confirmed. And on this 3-day Bitcoin price chart, in the immediate short term, we're still losing a little bit of bullish momentum, but overall still looking more bullish than bearish. And on this 3-day Bitcoin price chart, we still have an active cup and handle pattern, which is technically a bullish price pattern with a bullish price target. And that price target, in case you're new to the channel, is sitting at around $153,000 per Bitcoin, and that price target in this price pattern would only invalidate if we see a confirmed break with candle closes back below this line right here, sitting at around 110,000. And so overall, obviously, the larger timeframes have not really changed at all over the last 1 day, still losing a little bit of bullish momentum in the shorter term, cooling off a little bit, but still very much within a larger bull market. And if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin price chart, obviously, the story of the last 1 to 1.5 weeks now is the same story right now, which is, of course, the price continuing to struggle just underneath a significant area of resistance based on this 1618 Fibonacci extension level sitting at around 121.5k, but really in between around 120,000 to 123,000 in that low 120k area. Expect a lot of resistance in that area. Expect the price to struggle in that area. And so obviously, not a lot has changed on the daily time frame over the last 1 day. And if we're taking a look at the 4-hour Bitcoin price chart, at least for now, the price is simply just bouncing around in a sideways price range, as we can see. So we have important support here in between 116,000 to 117,000, and important short-term resistance in between around 120,000 to 121,000, as we could see. So ultimately, just continue to expect the price to bounce around this area of support and reject or struggle from this area of resistance. And due to the fact that, once again, on that 3-day time frame, looking in the MACD indicator, in the shorter term, we're losing a bit of bullish momentum, but at least for now, we're not really looking bearish either. We're just looking extremely neutral right now, showing no momentum to either direction, just looking very flat for the price of Bitcoin, as we can clearly see. So the short term is still relatively neutral, which means expect the price to basically just bounce around a little longer in this sideways price range for the time being. But zooming out, looking at the bigger picture, obviously this is occurring within a much larger bull market. And if we're taking a look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, we can see that we have more liquidity now building at just below the price at around 115,500. So keep in mind that could be a likely target in the short term, but obviously just before 115,500, we have this area of support where the price has bounced from many times, as we could see. So maybe the price tries to go towards that liquidity right there, but then perhaps bounces again around this area of support. That is a possibility we need to consider. And then obviously we also have a bit of liquidity now building above the price of Bitcoin at just above 121,000. But once again, we have resistance in between around 120,000 to 121,000. So maybe the price could also ultimately move up towards that upside liquidity, but before hitting that level, rejecting or struggling around this resistance, ultimately causing a bit more choppy sideways price action, bouncing around sideways in a short-term sideways price range. And obviously, if you're simply just holding Bitcoin, this type of price action is extremely boring because the price is basically not really doing anything. But for as long as there's at least a little bit of volatility during the sideways price action, which we can see, obviously it's not perfectly sideways, we're bouncing around sideways. For as long as this is happening, we can actually make a lot of profit in the crypto market utilizing some different trading strategies. For example, a grid bot trading strategy would make a lot of profits during a sideways price range just like this, and that's extremely passive to do as well. And so if you want to know more about a potential grid bot trading strategy and how to actually set that up to make money from a sideways price range just like this, then stick around to the end of this video to find out more. And if you want more of an active hands-on method, you could simply just look at accumulating Bitcoin or opening a long position, not financial advice, around this area of support, and then taking profits or opening a short around this area of resistance. Once again, not financial advice, but at least so far, that's just pointing out another strategy that has been working here in the the short term. And if you want to get set up ready to go to take that next trading opportunity in the price of Bitcoin or any other crypto, you have to be set up ready to go on a crypto exchange. And personally, I'm taking a lot of my crypto trades over on BTNX, so I'll make sure to leave a link to BTNX below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can claim some massive trading and deposit bonuses. For example, you can claim up to 40,000 USD in trading bonuses. And also, if you deposit just $1,000, you get a $200 bonus into your BTNX account, which you can start using to trade. It's basically free money to be able to trade over on BTNX. But once again, you can only claim these massive bonuses if you use the link below this video to actually make your BTNX account. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, or preparing to take the next trading opportunity, you might as well do this. Once again, first link below this video. And in case you're wondering, BTNX is a no KYC exchange, which means you can access it from basically any country in the world without needing any KYC. But as always, check your local regulations when it comes to trading crypto. And for whatever reason, if you don't want BTNX as an exchange, there's also 2bit as another option out there, another exchange that I also trade on. So I'll also make sure to leave a link to 2bit below this video. And if you use that link, you can also get some massive trading bonuses over here. For example, up to $50,000 in trading bonuses, and also a $30 sign up bonus and a 20% deposit rebate up to a max of 200 USDT. So for example, if you deposit just $1,000, you also get a $200 bonus over on your 2bit accounts. But once again, only if you use that link below this video to make your 2bit account. So once again, if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out. First and second link below this video. And in case you're wondering, 2bit is also a no KYC exchange. But with that being said, taking a look at the Bitcoin dominance chart, and obviously in the immediate short term, over the last 1 to 2 days or so, we have seen a short-term bounce, a slight bounce in the short term, obviously here in the Bitcoin dominance, which while that slight bounce is happening is not very good for altcoins. You'll notice that while this bounce is happening in the Bitcoin dominance, obviously a lot of the altcoin market, a lot of the major altcoins have seen some slight pullbacks or potentially some major pullbacks depending on the altcoin. And so if you're an altcoin holder or an altcoin trader or investor, obviously definitely keep an eye on what the Bitcoin dominance is doing. Once again, this is the Bitcoin dominance on the 3-day time frame, because if we, for example, run into a bit of support as we have done recently, and also oversold territories, resulting in just a slight little bounce in the short term, obviously this can heavily affect the altcoin market, at least in the short term. But overall, technically speaking, here on the 3-day time frame for the Bitcoin dominance, once again, we still have an active bearish divergence, at least for now. Despite this slight little bounce, this bearish divergence has not yet invalidated. And especially considering the fact that we recently confirmed a lower low on the 3-day Bitcoin dominance chart, obviously this is bearish price structure. So at least for now, this short-term bounce is not enough of a signal, not enough confirmation to actually confirm that we're now massively heading in the bullish direction in a major bullish trend reversal. It's not enough confirmation for that. So for all we know, this could just be a short-term bounce during more of a bearish trend that could ultimately follow, especially if the bearish divergence continues to influence the price, considering at least for now, it's not yet invalidated. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum on the 3-day time frame, we can see that right now, obviously Ethereum is continuing to struggle just underneath this very significant area of resistance, which is still sitting at roughly 3.9k to 4.1k. So really in that high $3,000 area, as we approach 4,000, expect a lot of resistance around there. And obviously that's pretty much exactly or very close to where we actually rejected from over the last few days. And so as I've already been saying since before we started that slight rejection here, the slight pullback, expect a lot of profit taking here in the short term, most likely over this week or so, considering we've just had a major bullish move and now we're running into very significant resistance. So this is the logical area on the price chart where a lot of traders are going to be taking some profits off the table, causing the price to struggle a little bit in the short term. And so I'll not be surprised if the price maybe plays out a bit more of a sideways consolidation, or maybe even a slight little pullback, not necessarily a major crash, but just cooling off a little bit after this bullish move, most likely for the next few days at least, maybe longer, maybe a couple of weeks, but at least over the next few days, continue to expect a little bit more of a cool off here. And if we're taking a look at the daily Ethereum price chart, we also have support at around 3.5k, and we can see that the price basically wicked down towards 3.5k at the candle wick, and we bounced from extremely close to 3.5k. So right now, that is the immediate support to focus on. But if we see candle closes below 3.5k, in that situation, we could potentially drop back down towards around 3.2k to 3.3k as the next area of support. But even if the price were to play out a larger pullback here over the next few days or possibly over the next 1 or 2 weeks, even in that situation, it's still possible we can remain within a larger bullish trend, forming significant higher lows and higher highs on the price chart, as we can see. So once again, in the immediate short term, expect a little bit more of a cool off as a likely scenario, but the larger situation, the longer term situation, is technically still looking very bullish right now. And if we're taking a look at the 2-hour Ethereum price chart, technically speaking, we still have a bearish divergence to watch out for, but soon this could be approaching its end, considering it's already been perfectly playing out as predicted over the last few days. And so obviously, as I've already been warning about over the last 3 days now on the channel, since basically right around here, I've been saying expect most likely a short-term pullback, or at best a bit of choppy sideways price action as the most likely outcomes over the next few days. And obviously from that point onwards, that's exactly played out once again as predicted. And once again, as I just said, it could possibly play out maybe over the next 1 day, over the next few hours or so, but I'll not rely on this for weeks from now. For example, this is only on the 2-hour time frame, and usually a bearish divergence on the 2-hour chart only plays out over a few days, give or take, before it starts to lose relevance. And we're already seeing some very early signs of this possibly invalidating, with some slight little higher highs and higher lows starting to form in the 2-hour Ethereum RSI. But especially if we break out above this line right here in the RSI on the 2-hour time frame, then of course that would be a strong invalidation signal, basically telling us the bearish divergence has already played out and is no longer playing out. It's now completed. And at the current rate, potentially at some point over the next 1 or 2 days, will ultimately end up invalidating the bearish divergence, which is why I just said don't necessarily rely on this too heavily any longer. Maybe it plays out over the next few hours, maybe another day or so, but don't expect much more than that. And if we're taking a look at the price of Solana on the 2-day time frame, of course on the daily time frame we did see a short-term fake out, 1 daily candle close above this golden pocket here, but on the 2-day time frame we did not confirm a breakout on this chart, as we can see. So at least for now, we're still finding a lot of resistance now that we're back below the golden pocket here, sitting in between around 191 to 199. So obviously now that the price is back below that area, expect a lot of resistance again in between basically the 190 range, in between roughly 190 to 200. But obviously if we ultimately confirm a breakout with candle closes above that level and actually holding above that level, ideally using it as new support, then in that situation, of course, I'd expect a continued bullish move towards the next Fibonacci level, which is sitting closer towards around $230. But obviously, at least for now, continue to expect a lot of resistance in between roughly 190 to 200. And in the immediate short term, we are finding a lot of support in between roughly 180 to 185, give or take. So especially closer towards $180, we do have a lot of short-term support around there, and also major support at 167 if we were to confirm breaks back below 180. So those are the key levels of support and resistance to focus on right now. And of course, the larger trend, the larger price structure is technically still looking bullish, even if we were to see a little bit more of a pullback. Either way, whatever happens in the short term, technically we're still forming higher lows and higher highs on the price chart. And if we're zooming into the shorter term, taking a look at the 2-hour Solana price chart, we can see that right now, technically speaking, the bearish divergence is still currently active. We've not yet confirmed any invalidation signal to properly invalidate the bearish divergence, which means continue to expect this to play out a little longer, most likely over the next day or so, maybe even a little longer than that, maybe another 2 days. Obviously, don't expect this to play out over many weeks or months. It's only on the 2-hour time frame, but at least over the next day, it is quite likely this could continue to play out just a little longer here. And as I said, right around here, this bearish divergence means we're most likely going to see a bit more of a pullback in the price coming soon, or at best, maybe some choppy sideways price action here and there as the most likely outcomes, the most common outcomes from a bearish divergence. And obviously, ever since I've been warning about that right around here, that's exactly played out as predicted. And once again, at least over the next day or so, this could likely continue to play out just a little longer here in the short term. But overall, on the larger timeframes, we're still within a larger bullish trend. And if we're taking a look at the price of XRP on the weekly time frame, we can see a significant bearish divergence is still forming holding and actually starting to get closer towards possibly confirming here on the weekly XRP price chart, with higher highs already confirmed in the price in the candle closes and lower highs still currently forming in the weekly XRP RSI. But at least for now, this is not yet confirmed, but something to pay attention to in case it ultimately confirms. And in terms of support and resistance based on this chart right here, the weekly time frame based on these Fibonacci levels, we have the previous 1618 Fibonacci extension level, previous resistance flipping into significant support here at pretty much exactly $3 per XRP. And we have the next Fibonacci extension, the 2618 Fibonacci extension, sitting at around $4.60 to $4.70 as a potential major point of resistance if we can actually get there. But once again, at least for now, focus on around $3 as significant support, considering we are basically just running into that level. And over the last one day, we did hit roughly $3. And if we're taking a look at the daily XRP price chart, we can see that obviously as soon as we broke below around $3.40, we had support at around $3.30 to $3.40. And as soon as we broke below that level, basically, as I've said recently here on the channel, the next support to focus on is closer towards around $3 in the lower $3 area. So basically expect a drop from roughly $3.40 to $3 as a likely scenario if we were to break below $3.30 to $3.40. And so as soon as we broke below that area of support there, obviously we just continued to drop towards the next support that I was focusing on. And so right now, continue to expect a lot of support around $3 pretty much, especially in between $2.90 to $3 based on this previous Fibonacci level of resistance at around $2.90 and also previous resistance here in between, once again, at $2.90 to $3, acting as very significant support right now. And as for resistance, if we continue a bit more of a bounce here in the short term, I'll now expect resistance at closer towards $3.40, really in the high $3 area, $3.30 area, I should say. So in between roughly $3.30 to $3.40, but especially as we approach that $3.40 level, expect a lot of resistance around there and also more resistance at roughly around $3.60, closer towards the all-time high. And XRP as an asset can be very sensitive to other little movements. For example, the little movements here in the Bitcoin dominance. If we see a dump in the Bitcoin dominance, XRP often plays out these huge bullish moves. But if we see just the slightest little bounce in the Bitcoin dominance, that can heavily affect the price of XRP, as we've just seen, because once again, XRP can be very volatile in both directions. It's a very sensitive asset. And so in other words, it's a high risk, high reward play. So if you'd like taking on a little bit more risk on potentially making some much larger gains, XRP is the right asset for you. As always, not financial advice, but just be aware that it does come with a little bit more volatility, a little bit more risk, but also much larger possible returns if you can trade it right. And considering the latest change in the price structure, the break below this level right here, and the strong rejection from the new all-time highs, it is quite likely that we'll not hit new all-time highs at least for the next few days or possibly weeks. Maybe in a few weeks from now or in a month from now, for example, we ultimately make our way towards all-time highs again, but at least over the next few days or couple of weeks, honestly, it's quite unlikely we'll head towards new all-time highs. It's much more likely now that we'll just either cool off a little bit in the form of maybe a sideways consolidation or a little bit more of a pullback, just cooling off a little bit now after this latest change in the price structure, at least in the short term, but the larger trend can technically still remain bullish here. And as always, pay attention to what other top altcoins in the market are doing, like Ethereum and Solana, for example, and definitely keep an eye on what the Bitcoin dominance is doing, because if, for example, in a few days from now or sometime next week, we continue with another major dump in the Bitcoin dominance, obviously this can definitely help the price of XRP here in the short term as a very likely scenario. So keep an eye on what is happening with those other charts as well. And if we're taking a look at the price of Chainlink on the daily time frame, Chainlink is still currently retesting this previous significant area of resistance, now currently acting as some short-term support, sitting in between around $17.50 to $18. But at least for now, we're still in the test phase. We're still running into this area. At least for now, we've not really confirmed any strong bounce or a strong retest, a bounce obviously from this area. And so we still have to consider the possibility of a possible break below this area. And in that situation, if we see daily candle closes confirm below 1750, and especially if we fail to get back above that area, flipping it into new resistance, in that situation, at least for the following days or most likely weeks following a break like that, that will be very bearish for the price of Chainlink, and would likely see a move potentially back down towards roughly 1550 as the next significant level of support if we first confirm a break with candle closes below 1750 to $18, which right now we're still just testing. And if we're taking a look at this daily Chainlink price chart, we're once again testing this level right here, the 50% retracement level, sitting at around 1760. So once again, in between 1750 to $18. Expect a lot of support around here. But once again, as I just said, if we break below that area, then the next previous Fibonacci level based on previous significant resistance here, which would likely act as significant support, would be sitting at roughly $15.50 as the next target if we first break below around 1750 with confirmation. And in terms of resistance, if we actually see a bounce here, continue to expect a lot of resistance starting at close to $20, but really in between $20 to $21, acting as significant resistance. And obviously that's exactly where the price just rejected from, as I've been saying since before we perfectly rejected from that level. But even if we bounce here, or even if we see a little bit more of a pullback here, either way, whatever happens in the short term, just for the next few days, technically the larger trend, at least for now, is still pointing in the bullish direction. We're still forming significant higher lows and higher highs on the Chainlink price chart. Even if we were to see a little bit more of a pullback and then a bounce, once again, that'll just form another significant higher low in a much larger bullish trend. But in the immediate short term, taking a look at the 4-hour Chainlink price chart, obviously, at least for now, we still have an active bearish divergence still perfectly playing out, as I've already been warning about over the last few days. Since right around here, obviously, I've been saying we're most likely now going to see just a bit more of a pullback in the short term, or at best a bit of choppy sideways price action here and there as the most likely outcomes, the most common outcomes from a bearish divergence. So obviously this is still playing out, at least for now. We have no signs of an invalidation here to invalidate the bearish divergence. And considering this is on the 4-hour time frame, not just the 2-hour time frame like those other bearish divergences I've talked about in this video, this could potentially play out over at least the next few days, not necessarily just one more day, but most likely for the remainder of the week, maybe over the weekend, this could possibly still be playing out. So keep that in mind here. In the short term, we're still looking either bearish to neutral. Once again, not necessarily a massive crash, but at least a little bit more of a pullback or cool off in the short term could be likely. And so that's the current situation for Chainlink and the rest of the crypto market. And as always, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, check out the links below this video to those exchanges if you want to claim those massive bonuses that are only available using those links. And if you want to actually know how you can trade crypto no matter what the price is doing, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from long positions or short positions during bullish or bearish price action, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit during choppy sideways price action using grid bot trading strategies. But anyway, that's everything that I have to say for today, and I'll see you all in the next video.